haunted followers, and welcome back to my channel. Guys, I need to apologize for the lack of videos and lack of stories. My life just seems to get hectic sometimes. But I do want to say I appreciate all of you who have stuck by me, especially all my new subscribers. It took me a while to gather some stories, but this subject seems to haunt us in our nightmares, because in reality, they're real. And for those who do not believe, you will be a believer after some of these stories. Here are 5 Skinwalker stories. Sit back and prepare to get scared. I feel like every story begins with, "I never believed in the paranormal before." And that was me, before this event. Maybe it's a situation that something beyond this world is trying to tell us that monsters and all those ungodly things really exist. When I was 16, my parents owned a small cottage in upstate New York. I loved that place. It was one of my favorite places to be, just to get away. I remember that day so well. It was summer. My little brother and I went fishing. The creek we fished in was maybe 30 feet away from the house. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but now, thinking back to it, I do recall that the woods those days were quiet, unusually quiet. No birds, no noises at all. As we sat and fished, I remember getting this odd sense of being watched, but not your typical parents or a person watching you. This ungodly feeling of a predator waiting to jump. All the senses in my head started to go off, and for no reason. I just wanted to run. I felt so uncomfortable. I turned to my little brother, who was at this point looking to his far right. "Danny, what is that?" I looked closely off into the distance. What I saw still haunts me to this day. It was a tall creature, I would say well over 10 feet tall, gray, with what looked like deer pelt sewn all around it, but its hands were of deer heads. I do remember their mouths moving on the deers, almost like they were in pain or something, but they weren't making any noise. My little brother was frightened and began to run to the house. I was just about to scream myself, but this thing ripped off the deer heads off its fingers and revealed these disgusting looking hands. Then it put its fingers up to its mouth with a shh motion. I was blown away with that, and what I was seeing. I ran to the cabin where my dad had already started to make his way towards me with a shotgun. I pointed him in the right direction, where that thing had already gone. He obviously didn't believe any of us, and to this day, he still doesn't believe us. I don't blame him, because what I saw that day defies explanation of anything on this earth. I do warn people. I warn people that those woods of upstate New York, or any woods like that, there are creatures that defy explanation, hidden, in waiting. Hey Unexplained, I love your channel and I hope you enjoy my story. If my story doesn't get picked, hopefully it will next time, because I know it sounds almost impossible, but I assure you that the events are true. This happened to me and my friend about 2 weeks ago. We were playing a game of paintball in the local woods down the street from my house with a few people. The game went on for maybe 2 hours. I had to use a bathroom, so I stepped away to use a tree. As I was making the call to nature, I noticed maybe 40 to 50 yards from me was something moving on the tree lines. Honestly, at first, it looked like a deer running on its hind legs. Completely thinking it was one of my friends playing a joke, I just laughed and finished up. As I walked back to the group and to carry on my conversation, it dawned on me. Everyone was there. I started piecing the parts into my brain together, but I didn't say anything because at the time I thought nothing of it. So what? A deer running on its hind legs. So we filled our paintballs and went back to the game. I had taken a position on top of a rock, which was amazing cover if I don't mind saying so myself. As I was awaiting someone to step into my line of fire, I noticed the deer again, but this time closer. It was just standing there on its hind legs staring at me. I looked at it. It looked at me. And to be honest, it seriously looked like some type of costume. I started laughing. Ha! Nice try, guys, I yelled. But something was not right. The look that this thing gave me was downright evil. It went from being funny to downright frightening. Then it smiled, literally, ear to ear, with the most horrible looking sharp yellow teeth you've ever seen. Right in front of my eyes, it started to morph. If you ever seen that movie It, that's what it looked like. Almost like it was trying to pull itself from its skin. The horrible ripping sound of it tearing through its fur, and I could see its internals and all the muscles and the bleeding red skin. I started to scream. I slid down the rock face, dropping hard onto the ground, and started to run, thinking that it was possibly over. I turned around and saw this thing chasing after me. I screamed for my friend and ran towards him at home base. I could see Eric in the distance. He started to yell to me to run faster. I picked it up, but my lungs nearly giving out. But I just pushed, and I pushed as hard as I could. I made it to Eric, and he started to run too. We got to the tree line to look back and to see that whatever it was gone. Eric, nearly out of breath, asked me what the hell that was. I couldn't give him an answer. I just started to cry. I know that sounds weak, but I was in shock. We both yelled to our friends, but luckily they came out of the tree line. Where the hell did you guys go? We just couldn't answer them. We had no idea what the hell we had seen. The most frightening part now is, well, I can hear where noise is coming from those woods at night. Once, I swear, out of the blood-curdling growls, I heard my name. I am a third-generation farmhand. I've worked these lands for well over 20 years. My children's children will take over this farm when I'm gone. Regardless, I came across your channel while I was on YouTube. I listened to your story about Skinwalkers, and I want to share the story with you that I thought you might find interesting. For several years, we saw some really creepy things happen. Now, in other stories I share with you, they always talk about how well they know the local woods and the animals. But I can say with confidence that I know every part of the surrounding woods. Heck, I couldn't name every animal call. It started primarily back in the fall of 2019. We started to notice chickens and other animals going missing. We thought this was the work of coyotes or maybe another predator. We eventually did discover a group of coyotes that we were able to dispatch, and others moved on. But the killings continued. It wasn't until 2020 that shocked us all. One of our cows were found mutilated. Now, for something to take down a cow, it would have to be a group effort, so to speak. But what was scary was that we found no evidence of a group. Something was working on its own. Another odd thing was whatever was killing wasn't killing for food, rather just for the kill. We ended up setting up trail cams but caught nothing. One night, I was laying in bed, ready to go to sleep when I heard the most terrible sound. It sounded like the thousands and thousands of animals screaming all at once. Something I can't grasp to understand. I grabbed my shotgun and ran out the back porch, quickly scanning the area. I couldn't find anything. But that's when I saw it. This monster, this abomination, it looked like a mutilated deer slash wolf, part human. And boy, was this thing big. It had stood well over 7 to 8 feet tall, and boy, did this thing stink to high heaven. I was frozen in place. It had one of the calves in its mouth, or what I could make out as a mouth. I rose my shotgun to stance and pulled the trigger. I could clearly see the buckshot hit this thing, but it just made it mad. I pulled the trigger 3 more times. This thing didn't even flinch. What shocked me more was that it was kneeling down. When it stood up, it was well over 10 feet tall. Whatever I was looking at, I was frozen. I just began to pray. I noticed how mad this thing started getting when I started praying. It looked like it was almost in pain. That's when it took off for the woodline. I didn't hesitate. I ran back to the house and locked the door. Not that that would keep this thing out. That was 4 months ago. I haven't had anything happen since, but it will be back. Any ideas unexplained? This happened to me this summer, and although it's not the best and a very short story, I really wanted to share with you in hopes that you can help. Now, I don't typically hike alone. Just wanted to say that. I'm usually with my friend or my wife, but that day, I just wanted to get away and made the quick decision that I would go by myself. I know this isn't the brightest of ideas, but I just needed to get it myself. That day was warm, not as bad as New England weather can be, and it can be terrible during the summer. I had walked maybe 3 miles. I already do remember those woods being silent, but nothing out of the ordinary for where I was. I sat down for a second for a drink, and my eyes caught something in the field just beyond the wood line. This was probably 300 to 400 feet away. Not so great that my eyes can make it out. I don't know what it was, but this super uneasy feeling came over me. I just felt like I could be hurt. I guess you call it predatory or something. All the bells in my brain started going off. At first, I thought it was a bear. I walked closer to the woodline and hid myself behind a tree. I could see this thing walking on 2 legs. I really couldn't make out anything except for a snout and antlers, but it had this really long body, very skinny body. It looked like it hadn't eaten in weeks. It was dragging something behind it. I got closer as I could, trying not to make any noise. It was pulling a carcass or something behind it. I don't know what it was, but it was all bloody. My brain started freaking out. I started to freak out. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I got up and started walking down the trail, keeping my eyes on this thing, but it never once looked up, or my way, or even took notice of me. Sorry for the short story, but it was a quick getaway. I still don't understand what I saw. Do you think it was a skinwalker? I am an extremely non-believer in the paranormal. Even after this encounter, I still really don't believe. Call it arrogance or something, or whatever. I'm sure that this type of an explanation has an explanation. I know this story doesn't fit into your stories, as I'm really not going to walk out of this a believer, but maybe you can make me a believer. Back last year, it was around this time, I was driving north to visit my family. The drive itself was well over 16 hours. I always stopped to take breaks. Usually I would take a quick nap in the back of my van. Van life. I would usually park at a Walmart or a truck stop. That night, I was getting really tired. I would usually do 4 hours, not trying to drive off the road or anything. I saw a pull along on the side of the highway, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, it was a beautiful view of the mountains. I pulled my van to the pit stop. My routine would be to climb in the back, sure all my doors are locked, put some Netflix on until I fell asleep. I know, this is not the brightest of ideas. I'm not going to go into my past, but just to let you know, I'm very confident in myself. I laid my head down on the pillow, I recall feeling a very uneasy feeling come over me, almost like I was being watched. I stood up, peered out my window. To my left was the woods, and to the right was a main road. Two cars passed by. I just thought, oh, maybe that was it. I laid back down, but this time, that feeling of being watched came over me. It became so intense. I really started to get uneasy. It was almost like someone was standing over me. I'll be honest, I contributed this to a sleep deprivation. I turned off my phone, lay down. I must have fallen asleep because I awoke to the sound of something outside my van. I could hear it sniffing at the van. Oh, great, a bear. I was in bear country. I pulled out my drug and grabbed my 45. I have lights outside the van, and with one click of the switch, my van lights will light up like Fort Knox. I hit the switch and came face to face with what I can only describe as something. It was ungodly. It had these long arms and these messed up looking face with these long rows of teeth. But as soon as it saw me and the lights hit it, it made this weird hissing sound like a cat. Yeah, a cat. I only got a second look for this thing because it darted into the woods, and I wasn't about to chase after it. I jumped up, assured my van doors were locked, and turned the lights off. I just kind of laughed at it, thinking that, it's probably someone in a costume trying to mess with me. Some diseased bear or some sick deer. Whatever it was, it has to have some type of explanation. Right? Well, all my haunted followers, I hope that you enjoyed those stories as I did. Skinwalkers are probably the most frightening topic that I cover. What is about skinwalkers that really make us have to think? I think the point is that they are a physical sense in front of us. They are real. And there's been so many sightings of these things, and they're never good. Guys, again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe down at the bottom. I'm going to continue making these stories. I think the next topic is going to be another paranormal encounters. I think that's another topic that I like to cover, and stories that people have been sending me lately. Another thing I want to do is do another Men in Black. That's been requested twice now, so I'm going to do that. Guys, again, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for continuing following my videos, and thank you so much for sticking with me through all this. As always, happy huntings.